Oklahoma is in the middle of an earthquake swarm. A huge spike in the number of quakes over the last few years has residents questioning what's behind the increase and whether there's a connection to the oil and gas industry. As the evidence suggesting a link mounts, regulators are looking at new rules governing how Oklahoma's energy industry operates.
Oklahoma normally isn't considered a prime target for earthquakes, but these are not normal times. There's been a huge surge of earthquakes in recent years. According to data from the U.S. Geological Survey, the spike began in 2009 with 49 quakes of magnitude 2.0 or higher and a record 291 in 2013. In just 1 week's time, the Oklahoma Geological Survey recorded more than 150 earthquakes, ranging from tremors too small to be felt to others which topped magnitude 3.0. William Ellsworth with the U.S. Geological Survey calls the increase unprecedented.
We have no other example around the world where activity has occurred over such a broad region in such a short time without an obvious natural cause. So I think the most likely explanation is that it is somehow related to changes in industrial activity.
Ellsworth believes the oil and gas industry's practice of injecting wastewater deep underground is causing many of the earthquakes. He says scientists have known for decades that injection wells can trigger quakes.
There are many examples of this going back to the time in the 1960s when the Army was disposing of wastewaters near Denver, Colorado, that caused earthquakes in an area where they were essentially unknown. And the research showed eventually that it was there was a deep disposal well that was responsible for generating those earthquakes. So the science is really well understood in terms of how these mechanisms work.
Ellsworth believes the same thing has been happening in Oklahoma, pointing to the biggest earthquake in state history, a 5.7 magnitude quake along the Wilzetta Fault near Prague in 2011.
And the published work on this points to several nearby wells. There could be others that were involved that perhaps reflected a long-term buildup of pressure underground, which eventually got to the point that it destabilized the fault, causing the earthquake.
Former University of Oklahoma geophysicist Katie Karanen has studied earthquakes in central Oklahoma. She told ONR last year there was a spatial correlation between the quakes and nearby injection wells.
These earthquakes are happening along a portion of the Wilzetta Fault that's within, at most, a couple of hundred meters from injection wells. And these earthquakes, like I said, in depth, are occurring at the depths where water is being injected.
The Oklahoma Geological Survey has also examined the data, but has yet to draw a conclusion about what's causing the shaking. A position paper released February 17th states the OGS has not ruled out that some earthquakes may have a relationship to oil and gas activities, such as water disposal or injection. But the agency goes on to say, overall, the majority, but not all, of the recent earthquakes appear to be the result of natural stresses. Ellsworth is skeptical.
Well, a number of scientists have looked at the nature of these earthquakes, and the conclusions in published papers is that these earthquakes are very unlikely to be natural in origin, and it has to do with the statistical nature of the earthquake sequences themselves and their distribution in space and time.
Ellsworth does agree that more research into disposal wells is needed.
One of the frustrations for the researchers is that the information about disposal activities comes in very late. It's only reported annually, and even then it's only a monthly average total of either volume or pressure. And to really get into scientific understanding, we need much more frequent measurements, and we need much more prompt reporting of the information.
The Oklahoma Corporation Commission is considering new rules which could provide that information.
We are continuing to gather data. We are continuing to work with researchers. Whenever there is a seismic event, our injection control people are making shapefiles, gathering data, getting injection reports on anything that might be of interest to researchers.
Commission spokesman Matt Skinner says the agency has proposed regulations which would require additional monitoring and testing of injection wells in areas of increased seismic activity.
What we are monitoring for is pressure and injection rates. Pressure is of key concern to researchers, and pressure that they can see in real time.
That data will be recorded on a daily basis and must be readily available to the Commission, which is expected to formally adopt the new rules within the next 2 weeks. As the research continues into the cause of the earthquakes, residents are growing more concerned about the damage those tumblers are causing. They're also interested in earthquake insurance. Only about 1% of Oklahomans have earthquake coverage.
Most consumers do not know that it is not covered under their current homeowner's policy. It is an additional policy and additional endorsement that is really needed.
Oklahoma Insurance Commissioner John Doak says policies covering earthquake damage typically run in the $100 to $250 range per year.
That cost has increased due to the frequency of the issues, and insurance really there's two triggers, frequency and severity. So where you have frequency, there's a higher probability that you're going to have a severe issue.
The policies usually come with high deductibles, up to 10% of a home's value, and homeowners might have to wait a while before they can get insurance. That's because companies have a lockout period that can run anywhere from 30 to 90 days after the last quake.
This is really for the protection of consumers who have already purchased these policies in advance, so the insurance company has the financial wherewithal to pay the claims.
Doak says one issue that regulators are looking into is the possibility of changes in building codes to make structures more earthquake resistant.
You know, you've got the same types of issues in California that folks may be looking here in Oklahoma on different types of structural issues that may be able to withstand stronger seismic activity. I think those building codes are something that will be looked at across the state of Oklahoma, but the local level, I think, is where those issues are going to be best addressed.
Few Oklahoma municipalities have earthquake-resistant building codes, relying instead on universal standards set by the International Code Council, which are updated every 3 years.